Kyle Klingman with Track Wrestling. We have two-time NCAA champion, two-time world champion, part of the Hawkeye Wrestling Club. Terry Brands, how are you?
Awesome. How's it going?
It's going great. I'm sure you're going great with Hawkeye Wrestling Club Showdown Open November 1. What do you want your guys to get out of this experience?
We're looking to get them the highest level of competition that we can and get them rolling forward and moving on. And this is something that, would be normal for this time of year. And that's kind of why we didn't compete at the Open there. It was a little early and we weren't sure on the dates until later with USA Wrestling and if it was even going to happen. So this makes a lot of sense. And then being able to go through with the middle of the month in Omaha at the U20s and U23s fits in really well. It was something we had to do.
Hawkeye Wrestling Club was formed in 1973. Of course, you came along a few years after that, but what did the Hawkeye Wrestling Club do for you to raise your level?
It just provides resources to be, to strive and to become the best wrestler that you can become. And, when you're pushing to be an Olympic gold medalist and a world champion multiple times, you need those resources. And the resources that I'm talking about in particular are the partners, being able to bang as even a college kid with, Brad Penrith and Joe Melchiori and Barry Davis and Lenny Zaleski and Jimmy Zaleski and Randy Lewis. That's a lot of horsepower that I just named right there. And those are guys that I wrestled with or drilled with or learned or drilled with and learned a lot of freaking wrestling from those guys. Kurtelmeyer, his, brainchild on that, and then Gable picking up on it and then taking it to the next level, out of this galaxy into the next realm and really, really laying it on for all the guys to just get better. It's iron sharpens iron type philosophy.
You graduated from high school in 1987. When you go to Iowa, are you aware of the Hawkeye Wrestling Club and what it's supposed to do?
Probably not aware like the way that we put out that information now. But the thing that you are aware of is that Barry Davis is there. And Barry Davis is making Olympic teams and winning world team spots and contending to win world championships and winning a silver medal when I'm a freshman in high school. And, those are household names where we were from. And checking remember the Big Peach, the Des Moines Register sports page used to be called the Big Peach. It was a peach colored sports page. And every Sunday, we would check how'd Barry do, how'd, Lenny do, how'd Jimmy do, that kind of thing. How'd Lewis do? And then, especially like around that post-Christmas stuff with the Midlands, they're competing there. And it was just something that you paid attention to. I don't know if it was an exact attention to the HWC and what it was capable of doing for us, but the knowledge that those guys were there was definitely present.
When you go into that environment, you listed off a lot of good guys, as you mentioned. How quickly are you competing with those guys and wrestling them on a day-to-day basis?
Right away. Now, what's your definition of competing with?
Well, my definition would be actually wrestling with them, so maybe not competing with until later then, huh?
Right away. If you talk about, hey, Randy, you want to go? Hey, Lubu, you want to go today? It was right away. But as far as, if you ask him if I was able to compete with him early, he would probably say no. And I wasn't able to compete with him in the sense of, I got throttled. I didn't score a freaking takedown in that wrestling room out there until just before Christmas. And, that's saying something. It's saying something more about how green I was. And Tom was kind of in the same boat there. I don't know who scored one first. Maybe we were wrestling each other on that day. One of them type of things. But it was an awesome environment that Gable provided. And I think that we've taken that philosophy and done very, very well with it.
How quickly, when you get on campus, do you get up to speed on, hey, this is a different level and here are the expectations?
What do you mean by that? Tell me again. Ask me again.
You just said, you went to a higher level when you got to the University of Iowa, and you have a thought of what it's going to be like, and it's probably different. What kind of time did it take to realize that this level is way higher than I thought?
It didn't take long at all. I knew right away. I knew coming in, I knew, I remember I came to a camp here my junior year in high school. Me and Tom and a high school buddy drove down and we stayed in the dorms over in Hillcrest and went through a technique camp and just watching the workouts and meeting Coach Gable, and you're meeting the people that you want to be like. You're meeting people that you want to emulate. You want to win a gold medal in the World Championships, like Gable did. You want to be able to accomplish that. And so, seeing that, how good it's going to be. I mean, if you can close your eyes and imagine as a high school freshman or an 8th grader or a 7th grader wanting to be able to wrestle with Barry Davis, I mean, I'm not a fool either. I know that, what you're up against too, but I also know that the harder I fight him or Randy Lewis, if you get Lubu to watch this video, he's probably chuckling right now, but I didn't score a lot of points on him over the course of all the workouts that you add together, but the fight was there. And, that fight meter is being able to win that fight meter in there. If you can't win that scoreboard, because there's no scoreboard in that wrestling room. And so I was trying to win the fight meter every single practice. And you know right away when you come in. I mean, how can you not?
How do you adopt that philosophy that, let's just take going against Randy Lewis? He's a counter wrestler, and shooting is probably going to be counterproductive, but that keeping going, fighting hard, and not just staying stingy and maybe just not shooting. How do you build that mentality that I'm going to get better by shooting and get my butt kicked?
You build that mentality by saying that I'm going to attack him. I might have to turn him, create better angles, hang on his head, and all of that. But there is no but. I'm going to get my butt kicked. And that doesn't mean that I didn't get my butt kicked, but I didn't go into any practice thinking that I was going to get mauled by him. And after the workout, it's like, gosh, dang, I got a lot of work to do. And then you recenter yourself and you slide a little bit, and then you get ready for the next one. And then you get ready for the next one after that. And then you get ready for the next one. The next one might be a lift with Mark Johnson, or the next one might be a drill with Keith Morlam or Lenny Zaleski, and then you're learning, and then you're trying to apply what they teach you to that next afternoon workout. And then you kind of get the same result, but you do see progress after a while. Like maybe I was in on Lewis's legs and I actually was off my belly. Well, I was locked on the leg, I was actually starting to, and so, that's really where it's at. It was never, but I'm going to get I'm going to attack him. I'm going to learn how to score on him. If he comes to me, I'm going to score. If I go to him, I'm going to score. You can kind of see the mentality there.
You won 2 world titles, made 3 world teams, Olympic bronze. Would you have gotten those credentials without the Hawkeye Wrestling Club?
Wow, that's a great question. Yes. The reason why I say that is because we teach our guys to be independent. The best workout and the best learning that you're going to be able to learn the most under and accomplish the most under is the workouts that you come in and do on your own. Now, you have structure to teach that. You create structure and you create a really, really great, fun, happy, intense, massive environment with all kinds of different adjectives that describe it for, your team to be able to excel under. So guys that are more loose, they have the ability to be able to stay loose. The guys that are more tight and that need to be more dialed in, or like sports psychologists call it an arousal level, Some guys, their arousal level at optimum is 3, 4, 5 on a 10 scale. And some guys are 8, 9, or 10, where they got to be totally amped. And you find that sweet spot through the environment that you provide.
Do you like this combination of, say, Hawkeye Wrestling Club, Titan Mercury Wrestling Club? The game has changed a little bit that way. How do you like the combination?
I love it. They provide support. They provide insight. They provide mentorship. You get a guy like for example, back in the Foxcatcher days, you get a guy like Dave Schultz that, for whatever reason, by the grace of God, kind of took me and Tom under his wing. That was a blessing. That was an unbelievable blessing that I couldn't have been more fortunate to gain. And that was created outside of this environment here. And then, for us with Titan Mercury and Gator before that with Ravenak, and then Titan Mercury with Andy Barth. I mean, you just great friendship. It's great mentorship. We watch him. We learn from him. We take direction from him without him even trying to direct us, just being able to meet with him. And some of the things he says, some of the ways that he carries his business practices, we apply those every day, and we learn more and more about that every single day to get better. We're in the middle of this fundraising campaign. Tom's raised close to $13 million. I mean, that doesn't just happen because you're a head coach of a program. You learn how to use the assets that you have around you. You learn how to use the people that you have around you. And Andy Barth is a big part of that.
You essentially went 2 Olympic cycles, 93 to 2000. Who was responsible for your day-to-day training during that time?
Day-to-day training, it was Gable. Gable was more of the structure. And then the individual side of it would have been Mike DeRoe and Keith Morlam. They were both tremendous coaches, different. Morlam was just a smart guy. The thing about Keith Morlam is that he could look at your style and then coach you up. DeRoe was more about the reps, so it was a really great combination. And again, I was really, really fortunate. You're asking me if I could have done, the things that I did without the Hawkeye Wrestling Club. And, the more I talk, maybe not, because I was very fortunate to have those people in my life. But the other side of that is that I was also seeking endlessly to get better. And I made a lot of mistakes, and I did a lot of stupid things, mistakes that I knew that I shouldn't do. I made those kind of mistakes too. So those were the two guys.
Would you mind sharing a few of those mistakes and how you corrected them?
One would be maybe putting too much pressure on me, making myself against the officials. I remember I won a 1-0 match against Guerrero. And I went up to Rick Tucci and I was like, take that, because there were some sketchy calls in there, and they put me on the clock, or not on the clock. That wasn't on the clock then, but they put me down. And I'm not a passive guy, but they had to make it fair because that's the direction they got from, whatever. But I get it now. And I took that to an unhealthy level. And then the next match, I beat him, pretty good, a lot. I widened the gaps significantly. And it was because I was calm. It was because I was not, blaming, putting the blame or my energy somewhere else on the officials, when really it's me. Tucci wants the best team to represent America. There's no question about that now, looking back. But when I was in the moment, I wasn't able to, take that and relax a little bit, maybe. That's one. Another one, if I had to throw one out there, it would be, I learned a lot as a coach, more than maybe as an athlete on this one, where, listen to your athletes and really, really get to know the circumstances that they're in. Kind of like Kyle Snyder, what he's going through. what I saw on Saturday with him was very similar to what I feel like I felt like. That pressure, trying to make things happen when you're really not ready to go. I don't know if that's how he was feeling, but the way that he was wrestling, that's how I felt. And if you can stop as a coach and try to learn and try to understand the psyche that's going on, because you do have an Olympic and a multi-time world champion with Kyle Snyder. You do have that. You know what you have. So you have to kind of, as a coach, you have to kind of stop and, listen a little bit more maybe.
How often do you have, or have you had, conversations and self-talk in your head?
Every day, every day, and as a competitor, every minute. The sports psychology world will tell you that there's roughly 60,000 thoughts that go through your head every day, and over half of them for not even just the average people, but more than the average person. Like maybe 80% of the population, more than half of those 60,000 thoughts are negative. And that's a problem. That's a problem. And we don't spend enough time on developing our mindsets, developing our, you get that, those biceps and the pec and the lats, and, but then we don't develop the brain and connect. For me, for this program, we talk a lot about head, heart connected, intestinal fortitude, that kind of thing. And that's really where that self-talk can be really, really evident in a guy's career and in his growth, in his maturity from the time that they come in as freshmen, by even the middle of October from our freshmen right now. You see massive growth with that stuff.
What would having a conversation with Terry conversation sound like?
Outwork the world, have fun. Outwork the world, have fun. That's pretty much what it was. When I was competing, my thing when I was going out was, I will destroy my opponent for you and your honor and glory, dear God, and for your son, Jesus, my coach, my team, and my family. And that's when, boom, I was out on the mat right after that. That's how I competed. That's how I talked to myself. And I talked to myself that way at night, before practice, during practice, sitting on the bleachers, in between wrestling goes, having that where you're bringing it back and you're doing it for the right reasons, and the reasons are to bring glory back to God, our creator. That's what we were designed. We were designed to, whatever we're called to do it at our greatest ability. And wrestling is absolutely no exception. I had a guy about 9 years ago come up to me, and after a talk I gave the team, he comes up, he goes, "You really think that God cares as much about wrestling as he does about med school?" And I was like, there's not even a question in my mind. He cares about ditch diggers. Of course he cares about wrestling as much as he cares about medical school. And so that can be unpopular. So you have to really be able to be vulnerable and then explain yourself through those things.
Let's take a situation that went the opposite way. Bill Zadek left the Hawkeye Wrestling Club and worked with you at the Olympic Training Center, and it yielded a world championship in 2006. How did you get him to that level?
He followed principles that he learned when he was a young competitor wrestling for the club that his dad had. And when he came into this room, he was able to continue to have that environment, and he was honed with that, and he knew what he needs to do. And Gable was able to provide for him what he needed. And when he left Iowa, he was looking for that same kind of a structure, that would allow him, that would teach him independence back. Provide the structure, and then on their days on their own, he has to be able to do what he needs to do to get better. And that's what he did. He did a really, really good job there of, getting himself ready in 2006.
Are you proud of these guys you coached? World Olympic titles, Bill Zadek, Henry Cejudo. Does that mean a lot to you?
It means a lot to me, but in probably a different way than pride, more of satisfaction that they were able to attain something. Henry's not going to, feel what I feel every single day of my life, where he just fell freaking short type of thing. So I don't know if I feel pride in that. I don't think I had a lot to do with that. I think that there was direction there that, the situation that I was in was able to provide, and I was able to help steer that a little bit. And then they were able to, rocket ship out of orbit, as they say.
Maybe it's not pride, but you have a unique piece of Hawkeye Wrestling Club history and Iowa wrestling history. You're the only multi-time world champion. Where do you feel like that places you in the history of the club?
Well, it places me behind her 5 Olympic champions for sure. So, and that's not the point either. I didn't compete to become the best Hawkeye Wrestling Club, most credentialed Hawkeye Wrestling Club athlete. I competed to reach my potential and then some, and to bring that glory back to God. That's why I competed. That's the joy in the fun part that I feel as a coach, as a competitor, as a person, as a husband, as a dad type thing. So it's maybe a little bit different than what you think about other people or what other people might think about why they compete. Hopefully not, though.
If you wouldn't mind, just talk to leaving Nebraska and going up to Montana State Northern, a unique time. You and Lee Fullhart were there for a couple of years. What was that like being up in Havre, Montana?
Well, Lincoln, Nebraska was great. Mark Manning, I'm really fond of Mark. Be careful here, Terry Brands, because I don't know what he's going to say, but I would consider him a good friend of mine. He's a funny guy. I don't know how well people know him that are watching this, but he's a funny guy, and he's quirky. He's quirky, and I absolutely love the man. It was tough. It was tough because I went there, and you saw guys getting jobs that maybe my brother and I were as qualified, or at least credentially in education wise, at least up to par on the guys that were getting hired. And so I was like, what am I missing here? So I left for Havre to get a master's. That's why I left. And then when I got up there, Chattanooga hired me a month and a half or 2 months after I was up there. So that kind of took care of that plan. I just needed to be maybe more patient.
You like your time there?
Yeah, Havre was great. Those guys are awesome up there. David Ray was the head coach, and here's the thing. The thing about David Ray and Kevin Jackson in particular, those two guys, is when they hired me, there was always a conversation before I went anywhere. And as an assistant, I was like, do I have the ability to be able to take these guys in the mornings and add to whatever you want this program to look like? And of course, a head coach is going to say, do that. And David Ray was awesome. He let it happen. Kevin Jackson, when I took the job, I asked the question. He goes, the program's yours. The resident program is yours. You do whatever you want with it. And that's all I needed to hear with him. And he delivered on that. And that meant a lot to me. That made it where I was able to function inside of, where my parameters are as a coach, where, how I see the development. And the USOC was good too, for the most part. They let me make a switch with strength training coach, and that was probably not easy for them. And it wasn't an easy meeting to have with that guy, and he laid it out. And then, they were like, well, what do you want to do? And I go, I want that guy. No offense to you, but I want that guy. That's why we came in here. I didn't need you to lay out another plan. I've watched you work with me for a year. I knew I want that guy. And, those things were allowed to happen, and as a coach, you have to have that at your fingertips to be able to provide the most resources that you can for your athletes. And that's what's great about here. You know, obviously Tom, and then you have our fourth floor senior administration is second to none. Barbara Burke and Gary Barta and President Harold. Man, I mean, that guy, between him and Nebraska's chancellor, they're the ones that pushed the football to the Big Ten. Those are the guys you want to have as your mentors and as your leaders.
When we look at the Hawkeye Wrestling Club Showdown Open, November 1, there's some matchups there. I think a lot of people are excited about Spencer Lee. How has he developed as a wrestler, and how has he taken the next step to be on that top level at the world level?
He's making strides every day, and we absolutely, you know, we love him, and how could you not? You know, he's a leader. He's a born leader that way. He's learned a lot. He's owned the things that he wasn't necessarily really good at, or some of the mistakes that he's made. He's owned them, and he's grown tremendously from that.
How has he handled this? From what I've seen and following the Hawkeyes all these years, he has a level of popularity that's pretty high. How does he deal with that?
He deals with it. He you know, he sat down with, I don't know if you saw that interview with President Harold last year, and he sat down with him, and they had a little cup of tea and kind of like a fireside chat with him and Bruce Harold, and it was awesome. Our administration loves him. The people across the river love him. He's just a really, really smart, humble person who is well-spoken and represents this institution in the state of Iowa in the highest way, in the highest manner. No question.
What are these guys thinking about this event? Are they pretty excited about this opportunity on November 1?
They love it. They're ready to go. They want to go. We want to wrestle. Thanks to our state leadership and our university leadership to allow us to do that. We want to wrestle.
Prime against Prime, who wins between Clint Eastwood and John Wayne?
I went through this with Tom.
I thought you changed your mind, didn't you?
I don't know. I watched Clint Eastwood and Space Cowboys a couple of years ago, and that was something else. So I might be back.
Okay.
I might be back there, but John Wayne was a tough dude. They're both. I mean, I don't know.